Okay, everybody, here we are. It is time for week 23. Okay, week 23.
We only have
That's good.
8 more.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, we do meet next week, but the week after that is spring break. Okay? Yeah. So, all right.
I have to go to the orthodontist.
Goodness.
Yay.
Okay, so y'all, today we're going to be talking about animal reproduction. And here we go. Okay, so when we're talking about reproduction, we're talking about cell division. Okay, cells are dividing and becoming more, right? So, for instance, in your skin is constantly going through a process called mitosis. It's making new skin cells all the time. Okay, and what they do is they start at the way underneath at the bottom of the epidermis, and they push up and push up and push up. When they get up higher, they die. And so if you do this, you can see little stuff coming off. Those are little cells that are coming off. In fact, the majority of the dust in your house is from the cells in your body. All right, it's kind of gross, but at the same time, it's natural. All right, so that is called mitosis, taking one cell called the mother cell. Yes?
If we were on Earth for a very long time, would all of the dust from our skin make a bunch of dirt?
Well, the answer to that is yes, except fortunately we have critters that eat it, the dust. They're called dust mites, and we need them. That's good. No, we need them. We also, bacteria will break it down, fungi will break it down. Okay, there are creatures out there who are very happy that we're leaving skin cells everywhere. I will tell you, the skin cells we leave behind are dead skin cells, so there's no DNA in them. So they're not like for crime scenes and stuff like that. They're not leaving any evidence of you behind, just dust. Yes.
So if someone, do the bugs get on you and try to eat it all?
No, only when it's mostly they like to eat it in your furniture.
Oh,
They're really small.
mites in our
They don't bother you.
spiders.
They're performing a vital function on the planet by taking care of that. I know, it's kind of gross. All right, but the type of reproduction happening in your skin is called mitosis. I have a mother cell, and she ends up with 2 daughter cells. Okay, so we start with 1, we end up with 2. Notice this one has that red club and the blue club, and these both have red club, blue club, red club, blue club, right? They both have the same chromosomes in it. In other words, when your skin goes through reproduction, it's a process of cloning. We're just making new cells from the old ones. Just,
So
what happens is the DNA duplicates, makes that X shape, then they get pulled apart, and then we have 2 of the exact same as the mother cell. Question, Clayton?
So basically, that's basically cloning. So basically, that's the process of cloning.
Yep.
Anything?
I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have to do the science tests?
What does that mean?
Like the ones in the book, the science tests?
Oh, you mean for this class? That's up
Or
to
is
your
it
folks.
optional? Okay.
It is optional. But if you do take them, they'll help your grade, promise.
It
Especially
tests.
if you bomb them, retake them, and then I put them in their grade in the Jupiter, totally brings your grade up.
If you redo them, you get half of the points.
That's up to your mom. She just gives me a grade. So if you take it and fail it, and you take it again, she says, okay, I'm not going to give you full credit. It'll only be worth 90 points. Then that's up to her.
Is that test book?
Yeah.
At home?
So it just adds more points.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Okay.
Unless you're getting a 20 on it or something. Don't turn that in.
The test.
Well, maybe not for your mom, but they're optional for me. Some families don't do them, so I'm not going to count that against the student
I do.
because your parents make those decisions. Okay. Question?
So, like if you do that test, will it help you with the test in this class?
Helps you with your overall grade, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Now, the other form of reproduction is called meiosis. It sounds similar, but it's different. What I start with 1 mother cell, end up with 4 daughter cells that only have half of the information in it. Okay? These have the full amount of information in it. These only have half of the, see there's 4 here to the left? How many are in each daughter cell? Just 2, because they only have half. Those are called haploid cells. Hap meaning half. The other are called diploid, meaning 2. Yes, Emma.
Why is part of them white and part of them red?
Okay, so that's just showing how during this process of meiosis, the daughter cell can end up with a gene from this chromosome mixed with a gene from this chromosome.
Is it like
It's called crossing over, and it's not a big deal.
Is it like
Nothing to
human
worry about.
DNA?
Say again?
Is it like human DNA?
Yeah,
That's how you
absolutely.
have like half of your
Yeah,
different
there's only 1 cell in the human body that ends up with haploid cells. The only cells that go through meiosis are the sexual reproduction cells. In male, they're called sperm, and female, they're called egg. All right, and the eggs are haploid. They only have half of this. And in order to get the other half, where's it going to come from? It's going to come from the sperm, okay? And that's how you have the mixing of genetic information. You have diversity. So animals, there are animals out there that don't have sexual reproduction, like bacteria, for instance. But there's no genetic diversity. They're all the same as their parent. But if you have an animal that goes through sexual reproduction, you have a bunch of diversity in there, okay? And which is good for life on the planet. It may not be as efficient as this. A bacteria doesn't need anything to divide and reproduce and have babies. Doesn't need anybody. Just makes new babies, okay? But animals need to have a mate. All right, so animal growth, the development of the embryo. So the egg is one of those haploid cells. It only has half of the information in it, and it's going to get fertilized with the other half of the information. Yes.
Is there girl or boy fish? Are they?
Sure, male and female. Mhm.
Really?
Yeah. There's male and female worms, but earthworms are both male and female together.
Oh.
Yeah, earthworms are called hermaphrodites. They're both male and female. Yeah. Okay, now, when the egg is not fertilized, it's just a haploid cell sitting there. Interestingly, an egg for breakfast is just a single cell. Isn't that weird? That it's so big? The biggest single cell on the planet is ostrich egg. Yeah, Cassidy.
So we have chickens, and
The ones that
when
have
we
the
crack open our eggs for breakfast, you can see a little dot in it.
Is it a red dot or a black dot?
It's red.
It's red.
That means it's been fertilized.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay?
I see.
And it's perfectly fine to eat a fertilized egg. It's good. You don't want to eat it when it's gone too far in the fertilization process because there'll be a little chicken in there.
Oh, yeah. So one time, there was a chicken was laying on an egg, but somehow it cracked. So my mom threw it in the pasture, and then she boards dogs, and so one of the dogs found it and cracked it open even more and ate the chick, and she almost threw up. It was so funny because it was like cold outside, and she was.
Who almost threw up, the dog?
No, my mom.
Your mom. I meant to say the dog.
Mom
Noticed
threw
it?
up.
Okay, because it's kind of it's disturbing, unnerving to find that in there. Yes.
I was like laughing. at her.
Once we were fertilizing eggs in like an incubator, and we were going to see if they were like it was a long time past, and we were going to see if they were okay and
Mhm.
stuff. So we started throwing them against trees and stuff to see if they were.
Because they were just doing nothing. You thought they were just useless. Okay.
And we found one that was alive.
It was alive?
Holy cow! Oh, there was one that was like.
There's that process of holding them up to the
Some of
candle,
them
right?
really,
Yeah.
really close
Yeah.
to getting
You
out.
can
but
buy
See if
it.
anything's moving, like up to a strong light, right?
But
The
still,
candle.
if you take a flashlight and you put the egg on it, then you can see
Yeah, but-
veins.
And you can see motion.
But once
and
we
you can
saw
observe.
one was like really close to getting out. It was like full grown in the egg, but it didn't come out.
Huh. Okay, yeah, things happen.
Was
All right,
it alive?
so once it's been fertilized, okay, the egg becomes a zygote. That's the word for it, a zygote. That means it now has all of the information. It's not a haploid cell anymore. It's now a diploid cell. It has 100% of the genetic information needed for an individual of whatever this egg is growing. Let's say a chicken, okay? And so almost immediately, it has something known as cleavage. Cleavage means to split from one cell into two. That happens almost immediately. So as a biologist, that's my field of study, right? I would say that when this first cleavage takes place, that is the beginning of life. Life has begun, all right? So then when we split it again, then we split it again, we keep splitting, and it forms this thing called a morula, and then the morula forms the blastocyst. And the blastocyst is going to be what we would call, at this point, the embryo. And the embryo is the new baby, right? And this only takes, depending on the creature we're talking about, it does not take very long to get from zygote to embryo. All right? Let's see. What about fish? Oh, check it out.
You can also
Those
see
are
other
fish
When
eggs.
I was a fish egg, and it was
You see
green,
it, it
tastes
looks like
green.
there's fish inside of it.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see the
When I
Cassidy?
look at it, I see Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he ever in the
He
egg?
was in the egg.
Okay, and yeah, they're going to hatch out of that. And we're going to have, here's them hatching out. There they are, coming out right there. Yeah. So,
Little oranges.
so,
Oh.
Orange tomatoes.
yes.
Yeah, it is.
If those are fish, doesn't like the orange stuff become food? for it?
So typically when we're looking at an egg, we know that you can see right here that little round thing. Think about a chicken's egg, okay?
Oh, that's-
The yolk that's in there is the food
that's
source
what
for
they
the
eat,
critter.
yeah.
Okay, it's the food source for the critter, And the same thing's happening here, that yolk right here. But on this picture, I just think these happen to be fish that come out of eggs that are colored orange like that. If you've ever eaten caviar is called roe, or fish eggs. Typically, they harvest the fish eggs from the mother's belly before it's fertilized. Okay, so they're not fertilized
So
eggs.
you're eating fish?
Eggs.
They're green.
They can be green, they can be black, they can be red. It depends on the kind of fish you get it from. Okay, and they're very, very salty and fishy tasting. Now also that this is a fish that's been caught for consumption. In other words, the fish has been caught and is gonna die for being eaten as fish. Would you eat fish? And when they open her up, she's got the eggs in there, and they scoop those out and they give them to a caviar guy, and the caviar, scoop them out, boosh, just like a big bunch of them in there. Cassidy.
So my grandma, on my dad's side, they cook fish a lot, so they catch them. And then when I was like 5, I remember them cutting them up.
Uh-huh.
And then they said, come here, Cassidy, and there's eggs in one of them.
Did they eat them? The eggs?
I think so.
Really? I don't know if I did that. Clayton.
Isn't the same thing done through the snails and everything, like basically the same thing, but
The same thing doing what?
like they're both a fancier type of food, but like
Caviar?
yeah, basic.
Yeah. Sometimes is it called something else? You
Aren't
mean?
they like really, really
Yeah, like
expensive?
Escargot is snails.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's eating snails.
Isn't it
Emma.
really expensive?
What does a pregnant fish look like?
Kind of a fat fish. Kind of fat looking.
Like when
But when I say that, she just has the eggs in her. She doesn't get pregnant. She lays the eggs and then they get fertilized. She doesn't have. They're not fertilized inside her body. There are some fish that do something unusual, namely a seahorse. The female lays the eggs. The male fertilizes the eggs outside of the body. Then he puts them in a pouch.
Yeah.
But I just saw something recently that said something about in the pouch they actually have a placenta. I don't know if that's true. I gotta look that one up.
What's a placenta?
Placenta is where they're attached to their parent. Okay, I think we'll get to that on this presentation right here. Yes,
How did they get the photo of that?
that's a good question. Some really, really excellent photographers out there, probably National Geographic. Okay, so when a fish lays eggs, she lays them and they usually float on the top of the water.
Is the black stuff?
And then the male fish comes by and just broadcasts sperm over them, and that's how they get fertilized, okay? And then they're sitting there in the water, and then they'll hatch eventually. Some fish, however, will brood their hatch, like the seahorse will brood his eggs in his pouch. They used to think that the male was giving birth to babies, but that's not true. It's just a pouch that he's holding on to, and they're in there. Why the male's responsible, I don't know. It's not the same in like kangaroos or something. It's not males, that's females doing that. But here's a fish that's brooding its eggs, and it's brooding it in her mouth. She's holding them in her mouth. And then eventually they'll hatch out, right? This is just a way to protect them. She doesn't swallow them. Does it tell us what it is? No, that's just a credit
So I
right there.
guess she doesn't eat or anything.
Well, I think she might set them aside when she's eating or something. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know that one. Okay, now this is a special kind of a shark pouch. Yeah. Yes. So sharks can give. There are certain ways of procreation. So there's something called viviparous. Viviparous describes an animal that keeps the baby inside the body. So humans are viviparous. Okay, we have our pregnancy, women become pregnant, right? There's another one called oviparous, which means they lay the eggs outside, and the oviparous are fish. But then there's one called ovoviviparous, which means they lay the eggs, but they still stay in the mother's body, but they're not connected to the mother's body in any way. And it looks like live birth, but it's not really live birth. So this is oviparous. This is a shark laying an egg, and that's the egg. And there's the yolk, and there's the critter. Yes.
Mom and I read about like all the oviparous and viviparous.
Ovoviviparous,
Yeah,
viviparous, and oviparous.
zoology.
Uh-huh.
It's like a book.
Okay. The study of animals is zoology. Yeah. All right. So when this little critter's old enough, he actually eats his way out of the pouch, leaving this behind. And you can find those on the beach. I found one on the beach in Florida.
I see those in Florida.
Yeah, they're called.
Oh my gosh.
They're called a mermaid's purse, because the sailors would find them and say, "Oh, a little mermaid dropped us here," but it was actually just the the developing pouch for the, it's the egg of a shark. Yes.
It looks like plastic.
Can you use it?
It does look like
Yeah,
plastic.
it
I
looks
have
like
some, and I
that.
should have brought them today, but I
It
forgot.
looks like a drawstring bag.
They're only this big. They're very
It
small.
looks like a plastic bag.
They look
It does,
big.
yeah. Other creatures like stingrays also leave little pouches like this. Okay. Now, some sharks, however, are ovoviviparous, meaning that they have the eggs are fertilized and kept inside the mother's body, but they're not attached to the mother's body. It's sort of like this happening, but inside the mother's body.
Oh.
Okay? So here is a shark
Oh,
right here.
wow.
That's cool.
How
And
is his tail like that?
I think it's a pregnant shark. I don't know if she's giving birth here. I don't know why exactly. I use this picture right here. Oh yeah, is that the baby coming out?
Oh,
Right there?
I think that is.
Yeah, and it looks like she's giving live birth, but actually the critter's just developed inside of her. Now, I'm going to show you the embryos inside. Now, when in my marine biology class, we usually dissect a pregnant shark. I can buy them and pay extra for them to be pregnant.
Oh my god.
And when we dissect them, we find the babies, and they look like this.
Ew.
So notice this big bulge underneath them is the yolk sac. That's
You
what
can
they're
actually see
eating.
Cute.
Yeah, you can see there's the gill slit, here's the mouth, here's the eyes. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, and so when I have that for that dissection, it's very memorable, of course. But we end up with these little, about the size of my hand, depending on how good of a sample we get. Sometimes they're so small like this.
Like the sharks.
Dog's fish shark is what I use, and they're about this big. Yes.
Like the sharks, like without the yolk, kind of look like those fat goldfish. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, so they're still developing, of course. These were not ready to be born. Now, when they're ready to be born, guess what? This yolk sac will be very small because they will have used it up. That would have fed them inside mama's belly.
If mom
Okay.
dies, do they die right away?
Yeah, that would die too. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an egg case for something called a cephalopod. It's found on the beach. That gives you a little bit of hint right there. Do you know what it might be?
Jellyfish.
All right, so Clayton is guessing jellyfish.
Um,
Every single one of these little things right there is an
Eggs.
individual. They're all individuals.
Alright.
Yeah, so there's a baby.
Plankton.
Somebody said earthworms.
plankton.
Plankton. Notice the hand is there to give us an idea of how big they are. Right?
That's pretty small.
Fish.
Nobody's guessed it yet. It is squid.
Oh.
So those are squid eggs.
It was either a squid or a jellyfish. And I was like,
Yeah.
it looks like a jellyfish's tentacles.
Right. So
But
I see because look, there's tentacles there too. Yeah, very good, very good. My hand, of course, was cephalopods. Okay, amphibians. Now, amphibians are frogs and toads and things. They also lay their eggs outside of the body and have external fertilization. In other words, they are oviparous, right? Oviparous. And here, they normally will lay them like on a stick or something, so they'll stay floating. And then they develop on the water in a calm part of a pond or something. They don't want it very, too much action going on. They want the development to take place. But some of them, this lady here is carrying her eggs on her back. All right, so she carries them back there to protect them. She uses some sort of sticky substance to stick them to her. They're the sticky substance on the eggs when she lays them, And then somehow she gets them up on her back there and carries them around until they hatch out.
I thought they were laid in her skin.
No, they're just sitting on top of it. On top of it.
That would be
Now there are some frogs. I should show you that video. The frog that keeps it in its skin, and they it's very creepy.
Oh,
All right. So the life cycle of a frog is that they are born in the water. They're called amphibians, which means dual life, because they live part of their life in the water and part of their life on the land. Okay. So they hatch out, and look what they look like, right? They look like what are those called? Tadpoles, right? They look like kind of like a little fish. They're breathing with gills. Then all of a sudden, boom, they get a little leg, woo, boop, and they're like, what is happening to me? And then look here, they're actually using up that tail for some nutrition, and then they're going to get the front legs, and they're going to come on land, and guess what they're breathing with on land? No,
Oh,
lungs. They've developed lungs by that time. Cassie, question?
So, in pre-K, I literally still remember this, but my teacher got some tadpoles, and then we had like that class like maybe we might have it every day or once a week. I can't remember. But every time I check them, and one time there's little legs on it. I was like, look, what is that?
So it was a full-blown tadpole, and then with no legs, and it did grow legs. Did it finally turn into a frog? Here's what I'm gonna tell you. Let's say you're out and you're looking in a pond and you find a tadpole in the pond. You think, oh, I want to take it in and raise it. Here's what I'm gonna tell you for advice to be successful. If they already have their back 2 legs, then there's a better chance it's gonna survive for you. Okay? But you can get a kit and order, and they'll deliver one in the mail to you. You know. But I'm just saying, when they're just tadpoles and you're trying to take care of them, it's kind of hard to take care of them.
Ooh.
Yes.
One time my friends and I raised tadpoles. Like, we went out and caught them.
How well did it go?
It went really good.
Nice.
Like, all of them got back legs, and some of them started to get little.
Yeah, but when you got in, they were full, just tadpoles, no
It was
legs at all.
tiny, yeah.
Okay. I always failed when I just had them without. In other words, I would let them stay in the pond where I found them for a little while. Then I would go catch them when they first had those rear legs coming out, and I had much better luck that way. All right, so we can see that life cycle right there, from egg to adult, and then the adult can lay new eggs. All right, let's move to birds. This is a kind of a bird called an altricial bird. Okay, it's a songbird, and you can see that this bird, when it hatches out of its egg, it is utterly dependent on the parent, right? A parent has to feed this critter. The parent has to make sure this critter stays warm, all right? But they are not, they cannot take care of themselves. And there's this really cool little reflex they have that even if you just touch the nest a little bit, it causes them to pop their head and open their mouth, right? Every second, what do they want to do? Eat.
Oh,
Is that
Eat.
pterodactyl?
Also, if you
It looks like a
whistle.
pterodactyl.
Any kind of thing that because the whistle would have a vibration to it, anything they feel there. Here's another group of, and here, notice this nest has feathers in it to help keep them warm. Now, but not all birds are this way. Some birds, actually, when they're born, are called precocial, and that's a chick. When the chick hatches out, so we can see it developing inside her body, right? It's kind of cool how chickens lay eggs and
That
all.
looks like an
It takes about 18 hours to make an egg, and it starts off, if you open up a chicken's body, an egg-laden chicken's body, you'll find a bunch of little yellow round, they're yolks. You'll see a bunch of yolks in there, and she adds stuff to them, and it's a pretty cool process that they add, and then they add the shell, the final thing.
So basically,
It's possible for a chicken to lay an egg that doesn't have a shell.
Yeah.
Kinda weird.
We've
It's no
done it
good,
before,
but-
and it was all like bouncy.
Yeah, bouncy like you did
Yeah.
some, yes.
When we used to have chickens, or chickens laid eggs or whatever, and the other chicken, they left, and then the other chicken came and sat on the eggs
Aww,
for like a
took
long
care
time,
of
and
it.
then we had a bunch of chicks that weren't actually
Hers.
hers.
Good for her to be a surrogate mama.
Oh.
Cassidy.
So, sometimes we get like tiny eggs.
Oh, with a shell on them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Little eggs.
Yeah, these are
no
probably
yolk,
young layers,
with
young
no
laying hens.
yolk in them.
Yeah, okay, they're probably
And then,
young hens.
And then the young layers are like have like that size.
Okay,
And
very
the
cool.
yolk-
All right,
and then-
now when the chick reaches maturity in the egg and can hatch out, there it is. This is obviously a staged photograph. They don't
Yeah,
look quite
'cause
this
it doesn't-
beautiful when they come
Yeah,
out.
they're
They
wet.
look
But think about it. They hatch out, they're kind of wet, then they dry themselves off. Does mama take care of these? No. She doesn't feed them.
But they follow them up.
Yeah, that's called imprinting, and they'll follow them around, that kind of thing. They learn things from them that way. But mama's not feeding them. In fact, mama's probably like, hey, back off, this kind of thing. They go and eat. They start eating on their own. They're walking around. They're eating all on their
They're
own.
pecking all of the stuff.
They're pecking stuff, yeah. These are called precocial. The word precocious comes from that. And that means ready to go. Ready to go. Always ready to go, right?
Used to have
surprised
chicks.
chickens have survived so long.
Yeah.
It's like they're
It's a
always
video, I think.
just so small and defenseless. But
Let's watch them.
Wasn't even there
This is
see
from
our
egg to
chicks
pea.
hatch.
This is just going to take us on the journey in the egg.
that looks like a yellow.
See feathers now. So that was pretty quick, I realize, yeah. All right,
Hey,
so
did it
the
have a
ovary here,
shell on it?
that's the ovary, right? It's going to enter into this, into the oviduct, and it's go through that. And every time it goes through each one of these things, something's added to it. All right, so this little chalaza right here, it's called. So the chalaza is the thing that's going to hold it to the edges of the egg. Then it starts to form the white or the albumin around there, and then we have the membrane around there. That's like a membrane around the cell. And then it'll start adding the hard part of the shell in this area right here in the cloaca.
What are shells made out of?
They're made out of calcium carbonate.
So if they don't have enough, then they don't have shells.
They don't, right, they don't have enough calcium if they lay it without a shell that way. Yeah. Yes.
Can I use the restroom?
Okay. Yes.
So, it's good to give your chickens like their own eggshells.
Mm-hmm. That gives them the calcium back into their diet and allows them to have the calcium to make an eggshell.
Or like
Okay,
their-
so here are birds that are caring for their young. These are altricial birds right here. So I believe that the one on the left here, does anybody know, is that a frigate bird? I think it's called a frigate
It's like a
bird.
raven.
Notice the red, see that red part underneath? I believe it's called a frigate bird. Look at this baby. It's got, it doesn't have the kind of feathers it needs to fly. So
Yeah,
birds use a special kind of feather for flying. It's called a contour feather.
Yeah, I know what those are.
And these are called downy feathers.
Yes, I knew it.
Or
I
down,
forgot
yeah.
what they called
Now,
it.
of course, the penguin over here doesn't fly at all, right? Those are flightless birds, but they still have feathers. But the feathers really kind of operate more like fur because they help to keep the creature warm because these guys are in cold climates. Where do they live?
Antarctica.
What if they live
Yeah,
not
down
in-
south, right?
What if they don't live there and they live somewhere else after a while? If they change their fur and all?
Probably they live in Australia, but Australia's pretty far down there, so. But will they adapt? Sure, they can adapt by having thinner, feathers or whatever. Yes.
Did you know that penguins can actually dive deeper than a whale, a sperm whale, I think?
Wow, that's really deep. I didn't know that. So here we can see they're kind of keeping the little baby warm and stuff right here. Have y'all watched that famous movie, The March of the Penguins?
No.
It's supposed to be really good. I haven't actually seen it. I ought to
Is
watch
that like
it.
a National Geographic thing?
I think something like that, but it was very famous
I watched
documentary.
something about like penguins moving.
And how the dad takes care of them.
Yeah.
And they sit between their feet right there and keep them from. And mom
Yeah.
goes out hunting and brings food back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever seen Happy Feet?
I have. That's the creepy one where the seal is chasing. The very frightening seal is chasing something. I think I have a
with the-
clip in my marine biology class from that with the krill. The krill named Will and Phil and Bill. Yeah.
It was one.
All right, this is called the guillemot or the guillemot. And the guillemot lives on the side of a cliff. Okay, you'll read about this one in your book. Did you read about this one? It lives on the side of a cliff, and look at the egg.
Not yet.
So eggs are egg-shaped for a reason. They're shaped that way because if you roll them, they won't keep rolling straight. They'll kind of roll into a circle. But this particular one has a very, very exaggerated point to it right there.
Wow. Yeah.
So when it rolls, it doesn't roll off the cliff. It just rolls in a little bit of a circle. Okay. So some people would call that an adaptation. I call it a design. God designed them that way. All right, marine mammals. Here we're looking at some. So if they're mammals, these are dolphins. Mammals are viviparous. Most mammals. There's a couple of weirdos out there, but the most mammals are viviparous, which means they give live birth, and that's the same with dolphins. Dolphins have live birth, and their baby is attached to them inside the mom's body with a placenta, just the way humans are, and then they're born live. Mammals, here's some also born live. Bunnies. I guess spring's coming. I picked that for that. Here we have, this is the things that make something a mammal. They have 3 middle ear bones. Interesting. They are warm-blooded. They take care of their young. They have milk to feed their young through special glands called mammary glands, which is the word mammal, where mammal comes from. And they have body hair. So think about that dolphin for a second. Didn't look very hairy. But here's the deal. It'd be more accurate to say they have hair follicles. So dolphins do have a little bit of hair, mostly around their mouth, sort of like little warts with little hair coming out of there. But they do have follicles in their body. So do whales, so do elephants. Elephants actually are kind of a little bit fuzzy, depending on the time of year. Yeah, and you can see most animals that we think of as mammals, we think of the ones that are really furry, kind of like this one.
Oh my gosh, I always wanted to pet that.
You gotta love koala bears, right? Of course, when I was growing up, I called them koala bears. They're not bears at all. They're marsupials. And marsupials have a special kind of reproductive strategy, and that is that the baby is born very underdeveloped, and it crawls into a pouch and then further develops into the pouch. Now, the koala is interesting because the pouch is upside down. The pouch opening is down here. So if the koala stands up, her baby could just fall. But it does close up like a purse string like that, called like a little ciliary muscle. Yes.
So that koala doesn't look very happy that it's getting snuggled. And that's
No?
like me with my dog.
Oh.
Like your dog.
You know that koalas have a very low calorie diet. They eat eucalyptus leaves and they don't have very much energy. So they sleep 18 hours a day, yeah. All right, here's some other marsupials. Of course, the famous one being the kangaroo. This is the wombat. Most of these are found in Australia. All of these, I believe. Sugar gliders are found in other places besides Australia. Sugar glider, some people call it a flying squirrel. So Mariah's sister used to have one of these. So Mariah's in this class. You know, she's not here today. Her sister, and she brought it to class with her before. It was the cutest thing ever. Yeah, so very cute. It was a sugar glider, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
My aunt used to have one.
They're real soft and really, really cute, but they're also fragile.
They scratch.
They do, yeah, they'll scratch you for sure. Marsupial mole, crested-tail marsupial mouse, a numbat. Yes.
You're missing out on one of the most famous mammals in the world.
Mammals or marsupials?
Mammals.
Okay, well, we haven't got to all the mammals yet.
Well, yeah.
The marsupial that's missing from this picture, of course, is the koala. What are you thinking of, Clayton?
Duck-billed platypus.
Oh yeah, so it's in its own group.
Yes.
It's really weird. It's a mammal that lays eggs. It's called a monotreme. All right, here's our kangaroo with her baby. Now, when the baby is very little, it's only looking like that.
That's what.
And Sydney, you've seen this before. I showed this to as many classes as I can. It's one of my favorite videos.
Instead of laying eggs, they produce young without protective shells, and this grey kangaroo is about to do so. Out comes not a shelled egg, but a tiny, underdeveloped little worm. It weighs less than a lump of sugar. It has no back legs, but it has forelegs, and they are just strong enough to pull it through its mother's fur. It started on an extraordinary journey. To survive, it must get to a pouch higher up on its mother's belly. Instinctively, this tiny living particle climbs upwards against the pull of gravity and towards the smell of the pouch.
Look how big its nose is.
After about 3 minutes, it reaches the lip of the pouch and clambers down to safety inside. There, it clamps its tiny mouth on its mother's nipple and takes its first meal of milk. As it grows, the ingredients of the milk coming from the nipple change to ensure that the infant gets exactly the nutrients it needs for each stage of its development. By the time it's 9 months old, it's getting a bit cramped. It's time to enter the outside world. It's almost like a second birth. He's a little unsteady at first, but Mum offers a helping hand. Now he's known as a Joey.
I think they were already known as Joey's. Like, I cannot.
They just roll. Having fun.
It's all a bit much for one day, and he heads back to the safety and security of Mother's pouch. It will be another year before he's fully independent.
Another year, wow. All right, so I probably should have, I'm recording this for Mariah, and I probably should have paused it. So Mariah, you might not get that video, because I might have to cut it out. Okay. All right, so mammals that are placental mammals, that means they develop normally inside the body. So we have cats would be that. So here's what a placenta is. So here's human baby, right? Okay, inside the mom's womb. And this vascular tissue is attaching here's mom's belly, to baby through a cord, okay? So mom's blood is here and baby's blood is the blue stuff, okay? And so the mom's blood and the baby's blood, baby never gets mom's blood at all. There's no mixing of the blood. What it's showing here is some of the cells of the baby will actually enter into the mom's bloodstream. And they just recently figured this out so that when a woman becomes pregnant, she can go at a very early stage, get a blood test, and they can figure out what's the baby's blood and what's her blood, and they can tell if it's a boy or girl based on that, which is pretty cool. That's called fetal DNA. So that's really the DNA breaking out into there. So, but technically the blood never mixes. So the baby could be one blood type, like type A, and the mom could be type O, and they never mix.
Type
Okay.
A, type B.
And so that also, will, once the baby gets born, the placenta will also be shed by the mother. It's called afterbirth. Okay, here's some different mammals out there. So we have cheetahs, we have polar bears with their
They play that
babies.
Shaq commercial on TV and they make you feel so bad.
We got baby gorillas. We've
I
got
feel like gorillas
baby
are kind of like
giraffes. Yeah, so giraffes and horses are what we call semi-precocial, that they're kind of ready to go, but they need mama still. So they can, like a horse, for instance, can get born and be walking around in a couple of hours, right? But they still need mama's milk. But they're much more independent than, say, those birds with no feathers on them, you know. All right, here we have a panda with her baby.
Pandas are
Playing with her baby.
dangerous.
All right. And asexual reproduction is when a parent cell just divides, so that's kind of like that cloning we were talking about. Most animals and plants come from two parents. Each new organism is a unique mixture of both parents. Organisms can reproduce without two parents in a process of asexual reproduction called binary fusion. That's not exactly right. I think it's binary fission. Yeah, binary fission. I need to change that. Okay. It's a process of reproduction where the two nuclei split in half, become two cells. That happens in bacteria cells. Hydra will actually reproduce by sending off a little baby bud. It's a little bud that comes off of the side like there, and that little one will turn into a new hydra. Hydras are little microscopic organisms, so living in marine environments and things. This right here is kind of interesting. It's called a planarian. It's a worm, and it turns out that you can cut it and make more worms that way. That's called fragmentation. When I was in high school, we actually got planaria to work with, and we were able to cut them and watch them regrow. So even this like middle part of their body will grow into a new planarian. Do you have a question?
Keep chopping them.
How does that happen?
That's just the way these creatures have been. Because look, they definitely have a head right there.
Can we do that?
I know.
No,
It takes
no,
time.
no.
In a one day, a week, it doesn't work. Yeah. Now you've heard about like a starfish. You can cut off one of their rays, one of their leg thing. You can cut a starfish in
It'll
half, and you'll
grow
have two
back.
starfish. You know, so yeah, it'll grow back. So this looks like maybe this one's been
So,
growing back, or some
starfish-
shorter ones right over here. So that's called regeneration. They're able to regenerate. Okay, so y'all, what I have for our lab today, it might creep you out a little bit. We are going to do I'm going to do a dissection as a demonstration. You don't have to dissect anybody.
Wait, I want to do it.
Well, you're going to be watching me
What are we
do it.
dissecting?
Well, that's the cool part.
Is it the straw?
It's a rat.
Yes! Hey, of the worst, of the, like, best
But,
things
okay.
How
Alright.
do you do that?
to
Let's
be
get to it.
dissected.
It's a female rat.
I dissect